Respect, of course, that's what we do. We fight and not always best fighter wins. But today, I'm a best fighter in the UFC, okay? I prove!
Merab, the machine, the Dvalishvili. The man that everybody's afraid of.
But Merab is relentless.
He's gonna, takes him down again. Merab Dvalishvili is nasty, man.
Being born in the Georgian mountains, Merab began training at a very young age. Even within his first couple of amateur fights, he was an issue. And that issue has only gotten worse. Now he stands as the champion of the bantamweight division, no one being able to touch his throne.
Nothing I don't see in the gym. I sparring the best of the best of the best. Big guys, small guys, nothing was surprising me. Nothing. I can go 15 more rounds like this.
No one can mention Merab without first mentioning his cardio. He has become a staple, a role model for how all fighters should train and perform. It's so good, in fact, that he broke a very interesting record.
Merab Dvalishvili has broken George St. Pierre's record for the most takedowns in UFC history. And he does it against a man who had never been taken down in the UFC prior.
It's indisputable that his cardio is amazing. Or is it? I'm Cam, and I've been training Muay Thai for over a year now. At the beginning of Muay Thai, my cardio was absolutely shit. I would always feel super tired in the middle of rounds. It would be so hard for me to actually hold it together till the end of the round, and I would always be one of the slowest in the class. That's what led me down this path of trying to figure out exactly what this guy does in order to apply it to myself. I want this guy's cardio, and so do you. The more and more I got into it, I realized something that everybody's overlooking, and it has nothing to do with his cardio. Now, just to prove to you that what I'm about to teach you isn't bullshit, I went from running almost 2 miles at a 10:32 pace to running almost 1.5 miles at an 8:19 pace. And once I refined what I learned, once I figured out, okay, this works, this doesn't. This works, this doesn't. I told my boxer friend about it because he was telling me he's been needing some help with his cardio. On the training plan I set him on, within one month, he went from running 2 miles at an 8:12 pace to running 3 miles at a 6:49 pace. Now that's a really, really big improvement. I don't know about you, but I was proud of him. And because obviously what I'm about to teach you works, I kind of want to gatekeep this information. Because I don't know about you, but when I'm sparring somebody, when I'm fighting somebody, there's nothing that makes me more mad, that's more annoying than somebody who is very, very good, who has great technique, but also amazing cardio. So they just keep on coming at me. And now I'm getting a little bit tired because I have to keep defending their strikes. They keep on scoring points. So because of that, I've structured this video in a way where first I explain to you what's actually going on, what actually happens inside of Merab's body in order to create this kind of output. And then I'll actually give you the actual exercises to where you can use in your own training. With that being said, let's get into the video. Now, in order to figure all this out, we have to ask this very important question. Why do muscles get tired? Well, I found out it is for 2 different reasons. And because there's 2 different reasons, we have to have 2 different solutions for them. We have to train in 2 different ways to counteract this. So, the first one is exhaustion. And exhaustion is where you're laying down on the mat. You're extremely tired. You're begging for oxygen. You're gasping for air. Really trying to recover from the round you just went through. And the other is overheating. And for this, I chose a plank. Because if you've ever done a plank, you've realized that as the longer you go on, it gets harder and harder. But once you finish the plank, it's very, very easy to stand up, to recuperate. You're not really out of breath. You kind of stretch it out. You shake it off a little bit. Maybe you're feeling it. You're feeling the burn. So you're not exactly out of breath. You're not exactly super tired. You're not exhausted. But what you'll notice is that if you were to go back down and instantly go into another plank, your muscles will give out on you because your muscles are failing. So these are 2 different types of fatigue. And we can train for these in 2 different ways. Continuing on, we need to start out with a little bit of backstory on this guy, Merab, and the reason why he loves mountains so much. He was born in Tbilisi, which has complex terrain with hills and cliffs, obviously a very beautiful place. He started training at the age of 12 years old. Oh, that's a fucked up too. 12 years old. He went into wrestling, judo, all that good stuff. Eventually, when he turned 21, he moved to New Jersey and started training MMA. Obviously, he kept on training, kept on going, and eventually, when he turned 33, he was the UFC champion. Now, what you'll notice about champions is that they don't start to become the champion once they start training. They start to become champion once they're born. It's not only the techniques you know and stuff like that that make you the champion. It's who you are. And who you are is built through childhood. It's built through character. So we don't only have to figure out what happened between 12 and 33, but also what happened between 0 and 12 to figure out what happened in his childhood for him to be such an amazing fighter. Now, I pointed out complex terrain with hills and cliffs for one specific reason. And that's because I want you to imagine Merab's grandpa. Merab's grandpa, before all the cars and before all the inventions, what did he have to endure? Well, let's imagine he lived down here in this nice little home. If he wanted on Sunday to get up to this church, what would he have to do? Well, he would have to hike all the way up till he gets to this mountain. Now, once he gets to this mountain, he keeps on hiking, and he's finally there. And that's only to get up there on a crisp Sunday morning. Imagine what he had to go through day to day. And that's important for us to realize, especially for what's coming up next. Again, here, imagine you wanted to get up to the castle. Well, you'd have to climb up, and you're finally there. This is why complex terrain is important. Now, I want to ask you, who wins a race? Between this guy and this guy, what is the difference between them? Now, I use a race because we like to think that MMA isn't like an athletic endeavor. But when we look at the actual anatomy of your muscles getting tired, we realize that it's very, very close. I use a race because it's very easy to tell, oh, this guy's in second, this guy's in third, this guy's in fourth. Now, what you'll notice is that when you look at it from a sports science perspective, you realize that acceleration is less important than deceleration. The way you speed up is less important than the way you slow down. And that's because I want you to imagine that we have these 2 cars. We have one that's just like an older, more like more travelable car. And then here we have a sports car, a supercar. If we were to put these 2 in a sprint, then obviously the supercar would win. It has more horsepower, it has a stronger engine, things like that. It's built for speed. But if we were to turn into a 100-mile race, then what we would see is that this car would actually win. Because let's imagine this car, even though it's built for speed, it's built to be lighter, meaning that it can go farther faster. But because it's lighter, it also has a smaller fuel system. It has a smaller fuel tank, meaning that within this 100-mile race, let's just say it runs out of fuel at 50 miles. Well, getting to that 50 miles, it would be very, very fast. But eventually, when it stopped because it ran out of fuel, the speed that it can produce doesn't matter anymore because it doesn't have anything to produce speed with. So, eventually, when this car catches up, it would win. It would take it right through the 100 miles because it just has a better fuel system. It can just take it farther. It's the same thing in here, in this race. What sets this guy who's in front, let's just assume he won. I don't know, but let's assume he won the race. What sets this guy apart from this guy is the way that they're able to keep their own top speeds up. Because this guy, we can see he has long legs. He looks pretty fast. He could sprint up at the beginning of the race and be in front for a good amount of the race. But eventually, when he gets tired, then this guy who will slowly come up and take the lead and win the race. We can see this mentality in a lot of Merab's fights. When we look at let's just drop a little graph. When we look up at the explosiveness and the output that the fighters are putting in, we can see Merab's opponents are here. They start very, very high, but then they begin to dwindle slowly but surely. But we can see that Merab is here. He doesn't exactly have very much knockout power. He's right here. But his output doesn't really dwindle. And that's why in the 5th round, all of his opponents are down here while he's up here cheering and doing whatever the fuck, running laps around the ring. And why is that? Well, we realize that when we look at Merab's past, we see that he was born in Georgia, which is clearly has a lot of mountains, which is clearly super heavy in terrain and also altitude. Now, altitude is important because lots and lots of track and field athletes use altitude to their advantage. Altitude is important because when you go up higher, the less and less oxygen there is. Oxygen is important because the more and more oxygen that your muscles have, the easier it is for them to produce energy to move. And that's vice versa. The less and less oxygen they have, the less energy they can produce in order to move. Well, it's tricky when we realize that different people over thousands of years have adapted to use oxygen differently. If you are in this, like just for example, lots of athletes would do this thing where they train low, they train at lower altitudes where they can have lots of oxygen, they come back up and they sleep high so that their bodies can adapt to having less oxygen. But the thing is, when you have less oxygen and when you don't have the ability to just drive down, train there, come back up and sleep, when you are forced to just sleep at this higher elevation, what your body does is it adapts. We can see here that when you're in higher elevations and aren't used to it, your breathing becomes faster because your lungs are trying to keep up with the oxygen demand. When they're used to being down here, they have to overcompensate. They have to breathe more just to keep up. Your heart starts beating faster because it actually has to produce more of these red blood cells to carry that oxygen. And the same thing, your blood becomes thicker because it has more red blood cells in your actual bloodstream. This is so advantageous for endurance athletes to the point where some people are even doping. They're doping so that they can have these benefits without actually going up and training. But like I said before, when you don't have the ability to go up and down willy-nilly and you are actually forced to just stay up in the mountains for, let's say, your entire life. I mean, this lady looks like she's been there for her entire life. Well, that's when you change. And she has some very, very specific adaptations because I want you to imagine she, in this very treacherous terrain, isn't going to be doing hill sprints up. If you've ever gone on a hike, do you sprint up the mountain or do you take it slowly? You slowly hike up the mountain, you're going. You don't stop very much. You just slowly go up the mountain until you reach the top. But if you were in something like a flatland, something like a field, that's where you are free to sprint. But after you sprint, you eventually have to stop because you're tired. Well, again, different people adapt to different situations. Now, the reason we have these adaptations is because of our ancestors. If our ancestors had to adapt to a certain situation, then they will pass on those genes for us to hopefully have a quicker start at that adaptation, have a better time adapting. And the reason this is important is because different people have different builds. The different builds you can have are one of two: slow twitch muscle fibers or fast twitch muscle fibers. And I'll run you through it just a little bit. Now, we can start with fast twitch muscle fibers. They are anaerobic, meaning they don't have oxygen. They don't need oxygen in order to produce energy. They are pale in color because they don't have the red blood cells carrying the oxygen to them. They fatigue rapidly because oxygen is one of the main things that we need to produce energy. They are low in red blood cell count, they are low in capillaries, and they are low in mitochondria. It's important. Next, we have slow twitch muscle fibers. They do use oxygen to produce energy. They are red in color because they have those red blood cells. They fatigue slowly because they have more oxygen to produce energy. They are high in red blood cell count, they are high in capillaries, and they are high in number of mitochondria. Now, why do I keep bringing up mitochondria? Why is it important? Well, mitochondria is, everybody's heard of it. It's the powerhouse of the cell. But when it comes to sports science, what it also does is it acts as a converter of types. It converts things into energy. That's its main function. Now, what exactly does it convert? Well, it converts something called lactic acid into energy, or better known as lactate. Lactate is a molecule that your body produces to turn into energy. But the thing is, when there aren't a lot of these mitochondria, a lot of these converters, then your body can't produce it into energy. When there isn't a lot of oxygen to help with this conversion, your body can't turn it into energy. And that's the reason why these fast twitch muscle fibers get tired, is because they don't have oxygen, they don't have mitochondria. And that's why a lot of times you'll say like, oh, my muscle's getting sore, my muscle's getting tired. It's the lactic acid building up. Well, it's not actually just lactic acid. A lot of scientists like to joke and say that lactic acid is just at the scene of the crime. It's not the actual perpetrator, but it's just at the scene of the crime. And that's exactly what's going on. What we need to do is we need to teach our bodies to better convert this lactic acid back into energy and not let it build up, while also having the explosiveness of these fast twitch muscle fibers. The main difference between fast and slow twitch muscle fibers are actually in the names. Fast twitch muscle fibers are very, very good for sprints. And that's why I put this picture here. Because as you can see, they are in a savanna. They're in a field where it's very, very easy to sprint, and where a lot of these predators are super, super fast. So these people also need to be super, super fast. But back to the hiking analogy, in a hike, you don't need to be super, super fast, but you need to endure. And that is an example of slow twitch muscle fibers. Now, just to give you an even better example, to relate it back to Merab. Here we have two MMA records. Now, who is this first guy? Well, he has decision. Clearly, this guy loves decisions. Clearly, this guy thrives on being at the fifth round, in being the fifth round. We don't see this guy knocking very many people out. He has maybe one, maybe two, maybe three knockouts. What we can tell from this guy is that he thrives, again, being in the fifth round, taking his opponents there and mauling them like that. He is a clear example of slow twitch muscle fibers. His muscles don't get very tired, but he also doesn't have very many knockouts. Now we have a second fighter. Who is the second fighter? Well, he has knockout. Clearly, this guy loves to knock motherfuckers out. What that means is that he has very, very many fast twitch muscle fibers that are very explosive, that give him a lot of power. But we can also see that he does not have a single decision, which means that he has never been taken to what's called the deep waters. Now, if you haven't put this together, this is Merab, and I was trying to think who I should put for the example of the fast twitch muscle fibers, and I chose Tom Aspinall. I chose Tom Aspinall because he keeps saying this phrase, deep waters. That nobody has been able to take him to these deep waters. Nobody has been able to take him into the third, the fourth, the fifth round. And he says it himself that he wants to be there. But it's not a good idea for him. It's really not a good idea for him, because the deeper he goes, the longer he goes into his rounds, the more tired he will get. And it's a little bit like Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson, if you could get past the 4th, the 5th, the 6th round with him in a boxing fight, in a boxing match, you were pretty much good. Because his power would tank so much. It would just plummet into the ground to where you could just beat on him. He would be a punching bag. But the thing is, you've got to get past those first 4 rounds to be able to be in that spot. Now, this is all because of the way that your body utilizes oxygen. These fast twitch muscle fibers absolutely devour oxygen. And for example, I know about this because I have fast twitch muscle fibers. I was always one of the fastest kids in my class, but when it came to running a mile around the school that we would do every Monday, that was not a fun day for me. Let's just say that I was definitely not one of the first. On the other side, we have the slow twitch muscle fibers that have lots and lots of energy because they have these mitochondria, they have lots of blood supplying them with oxygen, so they don't slow down. But the thing is, they also have to wait for the energy to be produced, and that's why they can't immediately be explosive. On the other hand, these fast twitch muscle fibers don't have to wait for oxygen. They can immediately go and then later on deal with the repercussions of not having oxygen. They get tired. Now, I have a very, very good example of this that I want to show you within a fight in terms of oxygen efficiency. Using your oxygen in a manner that won't immediately tire you out. All right, so here we have a 3-round fight with Merab, and we are in the 3rd round. We're fighting, we're super tired, and immediately he gets put into a guillotine. Now, what's interesting with a guillotine is that you have 2 capillaries you have not capillaries, you have 2 arteries and 2 veins on the sides of your neck. So if one of those capillaries or arteries get compressed and blood can't flow in between it, that means half of the blood that is going from your brain to your body and your body to your brain is cut off. And that's the reason why people get submitted. People, the light escapes from them, you know what I mean? They go unconscious, is because they don't have any oxygen going to the brain, so the brain just shuts off. The brain can't function anymore. So after a 3-round fight, Merab only has half of the oxygen that he would normally have, but we see for 40 seconds, he still lays there and he still pushes. He's bicycle kicking, he's doing whatever he can after he's super, super exhausted. And what's important about this is that his muscles use oxygen so efficiently that they don't need very much to keep pushing. And this is exactly what we want. I don't know about you, but I want to be able to do this, where I don't even have to be breathing very much. I can be in the middle of getting choked and still be able to move, still be able to think, still be able to fight. This is what we're trying to replicate right here. That's beautiful. And you can see how tired he is at the end, but he's still just fine. If it were me, because my muscles use so much oxygen, I would not be in a fun place. I'd be so tired. So here I have an example that's a little bit closer to what we're actually going to be doing. They are swimming an entire 25-yard pool with only a single breath. Now, they are both trained swimmers, and this is pretty easy for them. You're going to see just how easy it is for them in a minute. But again, their muscles are only using a single breath of oxygen while still being able to produce force. That's what's important here. And anybody who has really bad cardio or who needs a lot of oxygen would be super tired here, but you can see that they're smiling, they're talking, they're all good. Like, they're absolutely chilling. And this is what we want to go for. This is our goal right here. Okay, so how exactly do we get this? Well, if we can't just drive up to some mountains and live there for 3 months and get the lack of oxygen that way that our muscles need in order to adapt, well, then we have to DIY it. We have to do it ourselves and train in that manner. And what is the best way that I have found to do that? Well, it's none other than swimming. Now, if I said swimming and you're instantly turned off by that, I understand. It's a pain in the ass swimming, and it's, for me, one of the main things, it was a pain in the ass actually getting a swimming membership, actually logistically being able to go. But I want to tell you something. If you just train because it's fun, if you train to just go with your friends and have a good time, whatever, then you don't have to do this. You really don't. But if you want better cardio, if you want to train to put up a fight, if you want to be able to dominate your fights the same way Merab does, and if even better, you want to impress your coach, you want to beat up somebody in your gym, you have to do this. With that being said, let's get into it. So, I don't want you to swim like a swimmer. I want you to swim like a fighter. And we have to keep in mind that we are recreating this right here, this lack of oxygen at higher altitudes. Because if we're not doing this, then nothing else really matters. We're doing it for no reason. So, just because I'm so nice, I've created a workout plan that you can do 3 times a week. So I would really recommend you do this after training, or at least in the morning. Give yourself a couple hours to recover because this is fucking hard. So yeah, it's right here. First, we start off with an easy 50 meter. Usually, the standard pull is 25 meters. So a 50 meter would obviously just be touch one wall, come back. Do that one more time, rest a little bit in between, and now you're warmed up, you're ready to start. So the main set, this is to really get your muscles burning. This is to get your muscles to be asking for oxygen. We're really using these fast twitch muscle fibers within these sprints. So you swim to one side as hard as you can. I would say at the very least 90% of what you can. You do 8 sets of these, and in between every set, I want you to rest for about 20 seconds. If you're really fast twitch muscle fiber like me, then this is going to be not enough time for you to actually rest, but enough time for you to get a good amount of oxygen into your body, so you're not failing on the next rep. Then we move into these broken intervals. Now, what I mean by this is you do your first 25 meters. What the fuck is that? Do your first 25 meters at a nice pace. I'll just use this arrow. At a nice pace. On the way back, your next 25 meters are super hard. We'll use even this shit. Your next are super hard. You're putting in lots and lots of effort. In between these, you do 30 seconds of rest, and you can do 4 of these. Now, especially if you're a beginner, you're going to be pretty tired. I want you to take a nice, solid 3 minutes of rest. And that's because what we have next is fucking tough. Is tough as shit. We have breath control. And this is the bread and butter of this training system. If you could only do one thing, I want you to do this. What we're doing is we are doing 4 sets of just one wall to another wall, but we are controlling our breathing, because a lot of people with especially slow twitch muscle fibers who are very good at using oxygen, they get really comfortable with the tempo. They can run a long time and run very slowly just because they're keeping a tempo. So what we want to do is we want to replicate a fight where we're ruining that tempo. Because in a fight, you're not just keeping the same pace. You're changing paces all the time. Sometimes you're sprinting, going super hard, and sometimes you're a little bit leaned back, you're recovering, things like that. So this is what we're replicating in a fight. This is what I mean. Swim like a fighter, not like a swimmer. You do 3 strokes and then a breath, 5 strokes in the breath, 3 strokes in the breath, 7 strokes in the breath. What that looks like is you start out 1, 2, 3, then you breathe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then you breathe. 1, 2, 3, then you breathe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you breathe. In between every rep, you rest 20 seconds, and especially once you get to this 7 strokes, it's gonna feel like you're swimming in a fucking like Atlantic Ocean. Like you've got all these waves pressing against you, you're gasping for air, but you need to really make sure you're holding your breath, you're keeping it in. And a tip for you, I have, especially if you're a beginner and your cardio is not very good. Instead of being super tired and just coming up for air and just giving up on whatever stroke you're on, you need to swim faster. So if you're on, let's say you're doing the 7 strokes and you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you're super, super tired, you feel like you need to jump up and gasp for air. Instead of just giving up and gasping for air and catching your breath like that, just go faster. So if you're on the 5th one, just go 1, 2, and then immediately jump up. Swimming is amazing because it doesn't allow you to breathe. You can't just stop in the middle of the pool and just catch your breath. You need to be doing it in a very deliberate, very specific way. And this translates beautifully towards fights. As you can see, all these guys love it. We got fucking John Jones, we got Demetrius Johnson, some of the greats. They love doing this shit. And that's why it's so important. After that, you got an easy cool down, just an easy 100 meters, there and back twice, and you're done. Next, we have something that's, I would say, debatably more important to deal with than a lack of oxygen. Because when you lack oxygen, your body's okay with just keeping on going, but it would get more tired and more tired. But the thing with overheating is that when your body reaches a certain temperature, it loses its ability to contract. Meaning that if you overheat, you simply can't move your muscles anymore. And that's scary as shit. Imagine in the middle of a fight, just because your body's getting way too hot, you just can't move anymore. You just can't throw punches anymore. We need to fucking figure this shit out right now. And what's interesting about that is that your body knows this. Your body knows that it's super important to keep itself cooled down. And that's why we sweat so much. What you'll realize is that in terms of a sprint, let's say like a 100-meter sprint, if we put up every single animal against each other on Earth, every single, let's say land animal, every single land animal on Earth against each other in a sprint, we would get fucked on by everybody. Humans would get absolutely shit on. But if we put all of these same creatures up against each other in a 100-mile race, what we realize is that us puny little humans would be top 5. We would be top 5 of all animals on Earth that are land animals, of course. And why is that? Well, it's because of cooling. It's because of our ability to cool our muscles and sweat. That's the main way that we cool our muscles. I want to give you a little bit of an example, a little study that I found, which absolutely made my jaw drop. It was fucking insane. So they took this average guy. This is obviously just a drawing, but they took an average guy and gave him a certain time frame. Within that certain time frame, he did 100 pull-ups. And they were testing to see how cooling affects the performance of his pull-ups within this amount of time. So he did 100 pull-ups. The next day they came back, and even though he was super sore, they did the same test. Anybody who's been back to the gym after you were already there the day before working the same muscle group knows that your muscles are killed. You can't do shit. But they came back. And the only difference between the last set, the last workout, and this workout was that between every other set, he would put his hands on these metal poles, these metal cylinders that were cooled up to a certain temperature, that were really, really cold, so that his body would be able to expel the heat through his palms. So every other set, he would put his hands on these poles. And what they found was that in the same time frame, he didn't do just like 100 reps. He didn't do 120 reps, but even so, that would be crazy. He did 180 reps. He did 180 reps. That's almost twice the amount of reps that he was able to do last time. Almost 2x. Now, this is crazy because not even steroids get you this shit. Like, there's no steroid on earth. I mean, there might be, but there's no steroid on earth that you can take in one day, except for maybe like meth or cocaine, to do almost double the amount of pull-ups that you can do within one workout, within one day, except for this cooling. Now, again, people have different adaptations. People adapt to different environments, and that's why they have different bodies. And as we can see here, Tbilisi, Merab's hometown, is a very cold place. It's up in the mountains. It snows all of the time. And this obviously affects the way his body has adapted to cooling. What we'll notice is that people with higher body fats cool their bodies down differently than people with lower body fats. And that's because of the place they grew up. This guy's name is Thor. And where do you think he grew up? He grew up in Iceland. Iceland is obviously a very cold place. That's where the fucking Vikings come from. So his body has adapted to having higher body fat, which acts as almost like a winter coat. When you have a winter coat on, there's almost no cold that can get into your system. It doesn't really affect you. And that's why you see guys outside just chilling in shorts and a t-shirt while you're freezing your ass off in your hoodie. But along with this winter coat, it also has a drawback. And that drawback is that it can't expel heat. You can't sweat as much when you have this winter coat on, but you also can't intake any of this cold. Now, compare that to just some random African guy. It's obviously hot as shit in Africa. So his body doesn't need that extra fat. That's why they're also lean. Not only because of their diets, but also because of the environment itself. They don't need extra fat. So any extra fat would be a detriment to them because they wouldn't be able to cool their bodies down. And we can see that actually in Merab's build himself. He obviously has, even at 135 pounds, having a six-pack, he has a lot blockier. He has a lot blockier of a waist. He's a lot thicker of a torso. And compare that to a guy like Pantoja, who fights at 125 pounds. He obviously has a lot slimmer of a waist and doesn't need that excess body fat because he was born in Brazil. Brazil is obviously a hot place on the equator. He doesn't need that. Now, obviously sweat is a very, very important thing. And liquid itself, we are 70% water. So we will die without having water within like 2 or 3 days, but we don't really need food. Think about that. We don't really need food for a couple weeks, but we need water instantly, pretty much. It's very, very valuable. But your body still sweats. So it's important that in this sweat, we not only get the right amount of liquids, but also the right amount of electrolytes. Because when we sweat two very important things: liquids and electrolytes. Some people who aren't adapted to heat will not only sweat less, but also sweat later. Meaning that even though their muscles are working, even though their muscles are heating up, they can't cool themselves. They're just overheating inside of this winter jacket that they have. While other people who are born in a lot hotter climates do have the ability to sweat faster and sweat more. But what you'll realize is that once these people sweat, once people who have a lot thicker skin, a lot thicker body fat, who have the winter coat on, again, their bodies will overreact. So their bodies won't know how to react to the heat. And what they'll do is they will expel all of the electrolytes they have, all of the liquids they have, and instantly be dehydrated because their bodies don't know what to do. So it's like number one priority, cool down. Okay, we're going to use all of our resources to cool down. But that's going to leave us with nothing for our actual bodily functions. And of course, now that they have no electrolytes, their muscles can't contract. So we also need to prepare for this. Well, how do we do that? Well, we need to do two things. One, we need to figure out, okay, how do we keep our body temperature down? How do we make sure that even when we get hot, we can cool down? And we need to train for the ability to cool down by ourselves, to not need to be in a colder environment or have to do certain procedures just to cool down. Now, going along with the first one, how does your body exactly cool off? Well, it uses three different avenues, three different highways, you could say. And that is your feet, your head, and your hands, specifically your palms. The reason this is because they have very, very different structure in the veins that are there so that they can regulate temperature, so that they can take in heat and expel heat if need be. That's why they're always a little bit sweatier than every part of your body. That's why you don't randomly sweat on your forearm or on your elbow or on your knee. You're sweating in your palms or on your feet or on your forehead. Now, lots and lots of fighters know this. When they are in between rounds, when they're obviously getting hot, what their corners will do is they will take these very, very cold metal things. This guy has a mask. I don't know, he kind of looks like a dickhead with this on, but as you can see, he's very, very sweaty. So what they do is they take this metal mask, put it in ice, make sure it's very, very cold, and put it right up against your head, because obviously that's the closest place to your brain, so that your brain can cool down, you're able to think, and your brain can tell your muscles, hey, relax, we're okay. We don't have to freak out. And a very, very good example of this is within this fight. I'll pull it up right now. So we can see here, the round is ending, and immediately what both of the corners have are these things in their hand. You can see it's this little ice piece. It's this little metal piece. Sorry about that. And holding these little metal pieces, they're obviously very, very cold. What they do is they press it up against this guy's forehead and pour some water on, because he's clearly overheating and he's clearly super, super tired. Now, some fighters don't really like it on their head or their face or whatever. Some fighters do it on their backs. Some fighters do it on their chest, stuff like that. But everybody needs to cool down, and they all know this. And what's interesting is that not only fighters use this. The military uses this, firefighters use this, police use this. Everybody uses this except for you. So my recommendation, start using this. Now, how exactly do you use this between rounds? Well, the way that I use this in between rounds is if I feel myself overheating, if I feel myself really, really getting tired and my muscles are getting tired, then what I'll do is, if we have like an intermission where people are like putting on equipment, some people are putting on pads, some people are putting on their boxing gloves and shin guards and whatnot, then I will go to the bathroom, I'll turn on the cold water, and for anywhere from like 10 to 30 seconds, I will just hold my palms under the cold water. I'll splash some water on my face, hold my palms under the cold water, and then run back quickly, get my shit on. And I can't tell you how good this feels. It's like a nice cold sip of water after a hot ass run. That's exactly what it feels like. You can feel the heat leave your body. You can feel your muscles start to relax and start to cool down and really recover. Like this is what it means to recover. Really recover for the next couple of hard rounds. Now, that's all nice and dandy, but we need to prepare for not only being able to cool our bodies down through these little tips and tricks, but actually being in the middle of a round where you don't have an escape button. You don't have something where you could just go cool your hands a little bit. You need to prepare your body to actually be hot and deal with it and actually adapt to the heat. This is what a lot of fighters struggle with, especially ones that come from colder climates. Now, what can we do about that? Well, we have to train in heat. Now, I don't actually mean train in heat, because the more heat you are in, obviously, again, the more heat your body is in, the less it can contract, the less it can actually move and perform well. So if we need to perform and train in colder environments where we can actually use our muscles to their fullest capabilities. But we also need to be introducing super, super hot temperatures to our bodies so that it can acclimate and adapt to being under those conditions, to being in the middle of a fight where you don't have the opportunity to just rest. And the way we can do this is first by starting off with a sprint. A sprint is very, very good because it heats up your body a lot. You know, it's very, very explosive. It's not relaxed. It's not, okay, I could just go at a tempo. No, you need to be going as hard as you can. Your body's working overtime. Do your sprints. Now, before you do your sprints, it's very, very important that you hydrate properly, because there's a difference between drinking water and getting hydrated. And all of the elite athletes know this. Now, a lot of people take this liquid IV. I used to take this liquid IV a lot too. I took it mainly for the taste. I would take it before workouts because it was pretty good, I won't lie. But it has chemicals that are not very good for you. And honestly, it doesn't do as well of a job as these other two do and are just simply less effective. It's just not as good, you know. What I like to take is these trace minerals. Now, I'm not sponsored. I wish I was. I'm pretty sure these are a little bit expensive, but man, do they fucking work. This is like one of the easiest ways. If you pair up these two, just like running your hands under some water when you're feeling tired and taking these trace minerals, these are two such easy to implement things into your training that will give you such amazing benefits. Because this has calcium, sodium, potassium, magnesium, iron. Mine's downstairs in the fridge. I would bring it up. But man, is this amazing. Now, if you can't get this, because I know it can be a pain in the ass, then I would much rather you just take your water, take whatever liquids you take before your training, maybe Gatorade, maybe water, whatever. Sprinkle in some salt. If you can get Himalayan salt, much better. Because these also have minerals. These also have the electrolytes that you need. Okay, so we take our minerals, our electrolytes, make sure we're getting actually hydrated, not just drinking water. We move on to our sprints, where we're actually getting our muscles tired, getting our muscles hot, and overheating a little bit. And making sure that naturally we are actually working out. We're in a state where our body is prepared to grow. Because your body always wants to be in a state of homeostasis, where it can just be balanced. Nothing's going on, everything's perfect. But it can't always be in this balanced state. Sometimes it has to stress itself in order to get something, in order to stay in this homeostasis. While it's in this state, it's prepared to adapt. While you're working out, your body is adapting towards the stimuli that you're giving it. So it releases certain hormones, it releases certain chemicals inside of your body in order to adapt and to repair. And while we are still in this state, we want to capitalize on that as much as possible. And that's why what we do is after our run, I would recommend starting at your house, getting done with your run, and then ending at your house so that you can do this as quickly as possible. After your run, after you're already a little bit hot, I want you to hop in the bath. Hop in a very, very hot environment to not only teach your body how to deal with heat, but also use the chemicals and the stresses from what you just did from the run to power boost it. Now, you see how this guy's like super relaxed and super happy to be in this to be in this heat. We don't want that. We do not want this super relaxed, super happy face. Whenever I do this, I feel like I am a lobster cooking in a pot. And that's exactly what needs to be done. It can't be comfortable because the stress you need to put on your body in order to grow, in order to actually get better and adapt, can't be comfortable. It needs to be harsh. So what I would recommend, after your run, you're obviously out of electrolytes, you've sweat a lot, you're out of fluid. It's going to be hard to do this. Obviously, shower off a little bit first. I hate when I'm super like sweaty and grimy and then I hop into the bath. I don't like it. Shower off a little bit and then hop into the bath immediately. Do this for about 10 minutes. At the beginning, do this for about 10 minutes. Work your way all the way up to 30. I'm at about like 20 minutes right now, but from the research I've done, 30 minutes is the absolute sweet spot. And the interesting thing is, even a couple days after doing this, I already felt my body adapting to heat better. I wouldn't be feeling that burn constantly in my muscles, even in the later rounds of mitt work, in the later rounds of sparring, things like that. This really, really helps. And you can use a sauna. You can use a sauna if you want to, but not only is it just more effective to use a bath because you can actually engulf your entire body in heat rather than just having like hot air around you, hot steam. It's also a lot more accessible. I'd assume that pretty much everybody has a bath, or at least I do. Now, let's recap. We want this guy's cardio. How do we get this guy's cardio? Well, we have to do two things in order to stop our bodies from getting tired. We need to train at an altitude where we can get these benefits of not having oxygen so that our bodies can adapt to not having oxygen. It doesn't need to perform under these conditions. It can perform under any conditions, even if it's being choked, even if it's this or that. How do we get that? Well, we need to realize what type of twitch muscle fibers we have and train accordingly. Now, the best way to do that, the best way to train, is through swimming. Okay, cool. And next, we have to counteract our bodies heating up. Well, we need to realize that the best way our bodies heat up is through sweat. Or the best way our bodies cool down is through sweat. How do we do that? Well, we not only need to hydrate properly, we need to effectively utilize tools that will cool down our body, but also train in a manner that our body will adapt to this heat. Now, that's the end of the video. If you do want more, if you want personalized coaching or anything like that, for a very limited time, I am doing free coaching calls. Now, obviously, I can't do this for everybody. I have my own shit to do. But if you are lucky enough and in time enough to DM me, we can set up a coaching call. We can talk about anything when it comes to fighting training. We can set up training plans, talk about cardio, talk about building muscle, actually being athletic with your muscle, getting more knockout power, things like that. Talk about diet, all that good stuff, actually being prepared for training. With that being said, go get better cardio. Go use this to beat motherfuckers up.